Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shourabh Shah, and today I'm going to present my talk on mechanistic wavelet-based deep learning for virtual experimentation and classification. My co-workers for this work are Professor Zhengtao Gan, Zhao Ji, and Professor Wincom Liu. Okay, something. All right, thank you so much. So Professor Wincom Liu has already shedded some light on this work. I believe you guys remember that he showed an example with additive manufacturing for mechanistic data science. So this work will be just an extension of that. We would also like to thank Professor Jian Chao group for doing the experiments of this work. So the outline of my talk will be like this. At first, I'll introduce the problem for the audience, and later on, I'll dissect why we need mechanistic data science to solve this kind of problem, and what are the techniques that were being used, and some future directions regarding this work. So we all are quite familiar with metal additive manufacturing, at least with the term. So metal 3D printing has been a buzzword because with metal 3D printing we can actually form different complex structure with metal. However, it has its own issues. For example, in metal 3D printing, we have variable microstructures and some defects due to its rapid heating and cooling processes. And also because of transient keyhole dynamics, there is a susceptibility of porosity inside the material. So these defects and microstructural heterogeneity actually cause a variation of mechanical properties inside one single build wall. As you can see in the figure bottom right, that if you build a single wall out of metal 3D printing and take samples from different places and do an experimentation, you can get a variety of or variation in ultimate tensile strength of the material. So it makes designing part with metal 3D printing very difficult, as you really don't know what will be your weakest part inside the material, and failure could start from there. So there are three ways of quantifying this variability. We can use the experimental characterization techniques, but this is very expensive and you cannot do thousands of experiments to design your process parameters. You can use physics-based modeling and physics-based digital twins, but as you guys have heard in our morning session from Siemens speaker, that at first training a large manpower on this complex physical model is expensive, and also these are all computationally challenging software to solve the problem. So an ideal way would be to use mechanistic data science, or the 6 steps of mechanistic data science, where you can use the real-time data or experimental data and come up with a system and design and digital twin for metal 3D printed parts. So I'm going to show you how a demonstration of how we can do that. So it's not the first time that people have tried to use machine learning in 3D printed parts. Previous works have directly tried to use, or most of the previous works have directly tried to use process parameters such as scan speed, laser power, and directly try to relate it with the mechanical properties. But there is a problem with that, because in most of the cases there is no one-to-one relationship between these parameters, because this is a very complex physical process. So for the same process parameters in terms of laser speed or laser power or scan speeds, you can come up with a very different distribution of mechanical properties, right? So these attempts were made with limited success, I would say. So this is why actually we figured that there must be a mechanistic correlation between the process parameters and mechanical properties, and we should use, or we should get the help of those mechanistic relationship as well as the data science to get to the bottom of this problem. So this is where our work actually attacks. So we assume that we cannot use directly the manufacturing parameters. Rather, we will use the manufacturing parameters or manufacturing signature from the process. And as a signature, we have chosen this temperature time history of any material point in metal additively manufactured world. For example, if we consider this simulation as per se, it can be experiment as well, and take one material point out of it and plot out the temperature versus time, it might look something like this. Now, There are several physics or physical phenomena that are lumped together in this temperature time history. For example, when the temperature is between liquidus and boiling point, there is melt-pool dynamics that I have already shown. It gives rise to porosity and other defects, and there is some heat absorption, mass flow, radiation, manganese flow that happens in there. When we go over the boiling point, there is vaporization and spattering defects, and it's very difficult also from experimental measurement to identify what happens thermally in beyond this boiling point. Then when your temperature of material point is between the liquidus and solidus, there happens solidification and solidification cooling, and the grain growths happen at this time. This actually controls the final mechanical property of your part. And finally, when the entire wall is cooled down, we can see solid state phase transformation. And during this time, there is also also formation of different precipitates and different phases of the material. So you can see this temperature time diagram has all the signatures of what happens or what goes on from process to structure to property, sort of. And that's why we assume that this thermal field actually includes enough or sufficient information for explaining or prediction of mechanical properties of a specific alloy system. So that's the hypothesis they started to work on. I believe this mechanistic data science and digital twin system for system and design has already been presented by Professor Liu, so I am not going into too much detail of it. I just want to emphasize that what we mean by knowledge database in this case. So we have all been good and well and good understood that data collection and other mechanistic feature extraction, but in terms of knowledge database is that we will actually have these whatever machine learning framework that we develop, either it can be a neural network, or it can be a dimension net or other things. And also we will have some kind of digital twin or digital representation of the system in our knowledge database. What we'll try to do with this one is that we'll do all our design simulation or our virtual experimentation classification on that knowledge database and digital twin and come up with the solution or the parameter space that we want our manufacturing process to be in. So let's move on. So these are some experimental. So we performed this data science study based on experimental data only, and experiments were performed by Professor Jian Chou's group. And these are some overview of the process parameters. I'll not go into too much detail of it. I'll just identify the material system was Inconel 718 and substrate was stainless steel. And more importantly, actually, the red mark line has to be needs some attention. So we varied 3 manufacturing processes, but there are 4 sets of data or 4 sets of walls. The 3 manufacturing processes were without any dwell time, with 5-second dwell time, and with melt pool control. And we extracted infrared images at different points. Depending on the wall, there are 9 or 12 different points that we identified on the wall, and we extracted extracted thermal history from infrared imaging from there. And depending on the position of the wall, the time story span was from 300 to 700 seconds, and the actual amount of data was spent from 15,000 to 20,000, around that. So it's a huge amount of data. So if we take a look at the process signature, those were no dwell time, 5 seconds of dwell time, and melt pool control. The mechanistic signature we're looking for was the time temperature history, and the mechanical properties or range of properties, it can be upon your choice. So we choose ultimate tensile strength, elongation, yield strength, and Young modulus. So this is the input and output summary of our system. So we had in total 135 such thermal history curves from 12 thin walls with 4 sets of data set. And we extracted the infrared images, we extracted these curves from infrared imaging. And for the output as the mechanical properties, so when we build the wall, after building, we cut small millitensile samples from these walls, exactly where we took the thermal histories from. That was in the center, because we cannot take a point and do mechanical testing. So these millitensile samples were then experimented on to get the mechanical properties. And we have such 135 sets of stress strain curve, and then from there we extract the mechanical properties of the material. So before going into directly to data science part or regression part, we wanted to see if we can actually reduce the huge amount of data that we had from thermal history, and is there any intelligent way so that during this feature reduction or feature engineering we can actually extract some kind of physical insight from about the system. So first technique that we have used that is that the thermal binning technique, which is very simple. What we did is that we had the y-axis, which is the temperature, and we divided the entire temperature range into 50 degrees Celsius bins. For example, you can see 1200 to 1250 degrees Celsius bin, or 950 to 1000 degrees Celsius bin, and there are such bins for the total time history. So we started from 300 to 350 degrees Celsius because it depends on what wall you are looking into, and it ended up at the range of 1950 to 2000 degrees Celsius. Now what we did then, we considered one material point or one experimental point from the sample, and we counted up the total amount of time that material point resided in any particular bin. For example, this material point that we are looking at spent 33 seconds in 1200 to 1250 degrees Celsius bin. So we put that number 33 into the column vector you can see on your right, and it spent 28 seconds in 950 to 1000 degrees Celsius bin. So we also put that in appropriate place. So this will give us a column vector which has the information of how much time this material point spent in each bins, and this will be our input, and the output is that the ultimate tensile strength, for example, that we have got by cutting the millitensile sample from that specific place, right? So it can be one output or it can be multiple output if you want to regress multiple output at the same time, but this is just a demonstration, right? So this is an input column, and there's an output data. So this is for only one wall, right? So you can see that the dimension has become from around 17 or 18,000 to only 35, the feature dimension. So now we have 135 such samples, right? So we, instead of using one column at a time, we actually built a matrix where each columns actually represent the temperature binning ranges, and the rows represent the different samples, and corresponding mechanical properties was at the output column vector. So in this way, we actually reduce the dimension significantly, and we randomly separated data before training 150 times with 80-20 splitting of training testing data. I'm sorry. And we have tried out several supervised learning algorithms to see where we can actually find some physical insight and which is better. So let's look at some results right now. So when we tried out the random forest algorithm with importance range, just purely from the data, we identified three important temperature ranges. So we can see the first one is 1212 to 1364 degrees Celsius. So this temperature range is actually related to Incolon 718 melting point, which is 1260 to 1336, and we can all you can figure that out by ourselves, that of course the melting and solidification has an impact on the mechanical properties of the material. Then another temperature range that was found to be important is 654 to 856 degrees Celsius. So you can see the gamma prime formation temperature is around 649 degrees Celsius, and gamma double prime precipitate is from 649 to 760 degrees Celsius. So basically it shows that around this range, 650 to 800 degrees Celsius range, this range of temperature is very important for any material point. And we can see why, because depending on how much time it spends in this temperature bin, its microstructure will be very different, right? And that will affect the mechanical properties. So we went further along this idea since it seems simple enough. We took these three temperature bins and we got the time spent by the material point in each temperature bins and took that as our variable, and we did simple linear regression to see if we can actually prove our hypothesis that it is related to the mechanical properties. Now you can see the dimension has been reduced to 17,000 to only 3, right? So you see the first item of this equation, T1314, says how much time it is spent on 1314 to 1365 degrees Celsius, and it has a negative effect because this is related to the melting temperature, melting and solidification temperature of Inconel. And it makes sense because so the larger amount of time it spends in that zone, or increasing the solidification time, leads to a larger primary dendritic arm spacing inside the material, which actually degrades the ultimate tensile strength. So this has some physical intuition behind it. Other two terms in the equation are related to the microstructural formation or precipitate formation, and they both have positive effects. So which means that the more time you spend for cooling during your solid state, so that will give you more time for the precipitate formation, and your microstructure will have increased volume fraction of precipitates, and thus it will strengthen the material. So even with this very simple linear equation, you can get some physical insight about the strength of the material. And if you only a qualitative equation or relationship, you can use this very simple equation to get a map of your process. And that's the first step, right? Now, then we...
Saurabh, you have 3 more minutes of your presentation and 3 more minutes of question and answers. Thank you.
All right. So based on this, we went on to use wavelet scalograms. We converted a time temperature history through wavelet transformation to frequency time zone. And we found out that this wavelet transformation actually captures the dominant frequency, which is related to the scan speed of this laser, and also there we can see some higher frequencies, which we later found out is related to the melt pool change, instantaneous temperature fluctuation, and inherent noise. So you can see we took 2 locations on the wall, 1 and 2, and observed the wavelet scalogram if we want to see some changes in the material behavior. So in point 1 you can see dual peaks in thermal history, and point 2 we don't see any dual peaks. So point 1 is close to the top of the wall, and it doesn't get enough time of cooling, because once it gets heated up, the laser immediately passes it through, so we can see dual peaks. And when it gets enough time for cooling, like position 2, we have higher volume fraction of precipitates and finer precipitates. Thus, we can see the UTS is higher in this section. And in this slide, we show the difference between with and without dwell time. The bottom, we see the example scaleogram with 5-second dwell time. At the top, we have no dwell time. So when we have a 5-second dwell time, we see much more fluctuations in the temperature, which reflects that we are controlling the melt pool. And because of this control, we can actually have lower solidification cooling time, which will in turn generate more volume fraction of precipitate and increase the strength of the material. That's what you can see in the plot. So later on, we developed we used a convolutional neural network where these 135 scalogram were taken as input and mechanical property was taken as the output. And we had with only 135 data, we could actually get a very good training set of training R square, although the testing R square value is 0.7, which might be little itchy because we are used to seeing like 0.9 or too close to 1 as for testing. But later we'll show that we have also actually compared with the experimental data to get the mean relative error between the prediction of ultimate strength and actual experimental ultimate strength, and it is below 5%, which is generally acceptable for engineering. So with this CNN, we actually predicted this map of mechanical properties using purely experimental data. And this map, the black ones are the predicted data with CNN, and the red ones are the experimental data. So you can see there is a close match between them, at least within 5%, and the map is actually similar to the map that we would get if we had used directly experimental data. So this was the purpose, right? We wanted to predict the map or variation of mechanical properties on the wall so that we can actually get an idea what will be our weakest part of the wall before even going into the process. So this is a comparison about elongation and yield strength with the experimental predicted result, and you can see they're at least qualitatively very close. And this is the chart we are talking about. They see the mean relative error MRE is pretty good for even elongation and yield strength, which is below almost or near 5%. So which is engineeringly in terms of engineering should be okay to use. However, it is of course that we didn't have a large amount of data because of the data paucity. We are using experimental data. But if we had used, for example, with experiment and computational data using some kind of active learning mechanism, and tried to figure out mechanistic insight from there, it would have been much better, and we're on to doing that as well. So this work is actually a test case and a demonstration that we can actually use mechanistic machine learning in additive manufacturing cases, and it will give us a digital twin that is more useful, more conveniently useful in case of manufacturing processes. Thank you so much for your question.
Thank you, Sarah, for your presentation. If any of you have on-site questions, you're free to ask them at this point in time. Thank you.
I can see one question here.
Thank you for your presentation. I got 2 questions actually.
Mm-hmm.
First question is that as a mechanical engineering, I would desire a system that in the design phase would allow me to choose the correct parameter of the manufacturing process to obtain the desired characteristic. While here I need the thermal history of my component, right?
So
That is already an output of the process. So I've already chosen my parameters to obtain my thermal history. Are you somehow do you somehow plan to like forecast the thermal distribution from the parameter of the manufacturing, and then use your system and somehow?
I think what you are trying to say that here we have all the data and we have developed the model and then we are trying to use it, right? But you want online control, right? Like
It's that like in design phase when I'm designing my product, I want to understand which parameter do I need to set in my additive manufacturing process to obtain that ultimate strength, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, but in your system, I need the thermal history. And to get the thermal history, I've already decided which parameter obtain use. So I was thinking if you plan to.
Yeah, I understand what you're trying to get at.
Yeah.
So yes, see that's the problem that I explained. So there is it's very difficult to go from directly from the process parameters to mechanical properties. However, if you take the thermal history, you kind of know the physics of the system, right? And it is comparatively, I would say, simpler to get a relationship between those two. But if you had attended today's morning talk given by Professor Chow, I think you'll be able to see that their group of actually trying to predict the thermal history itself from the process parameters using data science as well. So if you combine these two type of studies together, you can actually get to process parameters to directly mechanical properties. That's a good question. Thank you.
Another curiosity is like you use thermal history because it actually intrinsically contains all the information about the microstructure.
Mm-hmm.
And you are forecasting microstructure governance properties like UTS.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you want to forecast some defect governance properties like fatigue life.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How would you tackle this?
That's a very good question. We're actually currently our group is working on that as well. So you can actually predict the porosity. We already did some work on fatigue life using active learning. So we did some experiments by ourselves, and we had also some simulation using including the surface roughness. And when you did active learning, so basically it goes from your loading condition. So you are analyzing on microstructure and can tell the fatigue life, right? So if that was actually indeed possible, I can show you personally that those results as well. And right now we are also working on DimensionNet. I think Javi will send you show you some stuff, or you can go to defect directly from the process. Yeah, that's a good question, and that's the direction we are currently heading into. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Saurabh, for answering those questions.